Do you remember Everybody Loves Raymond? It felt like home. One noisy kitchen, endless family clashes, and laughter that never faded. But when the cameras stopped, real life moved in. Behind those familiar smiles came illness, broken marriages, and unexpected loss. This is what happened then, and where they are now. Ray Romano as Raymond Ray Barone. Ray Barone became the kind of television character people recognized instantly. Awkward, hesitant, and quietly overwhelmed by family life. Ray Romano was 39 years old in 1996, bringing to the role a maturity that helped define the show's tone and realism. His portrayal of Raymond Ray Barone shaped the series into a grounded family comedy rather than a loud sitcom. Much of the show's emotional rhythm followed his restraint. Raymond Albert Romano was born on December 21, 1957, in Queens, New York, into a middle-class Italian-American household built on structure and expectation. His father worked as an engineer and real estate agent, his mother taught piano, and discipline was assumed rather than discussed. Romano grew up learning that stability often comes at the cost of personal certainty. That uncertainty followed him into adulthood. He studied accounting at Queens College, walked away, and spent years drifting between bank jobs and sales work while testing himself on stand-up stages at night. Failure was constant and demoralizing, with long stretches of rejection that offered no reassurance. Recognition arrived late. Everybody Loves Raymond transformed that fragile voice into one of television's most recognizable rhythms, earning Romano multiple Emmy Awards. Success, however, never quieted the internal tension. Fame magnified responsibility, especially as Romano became the primary provider for his family. His marriage to Anna Scarpulla, whom he married in 1987, endured strain as work consumed his time and energy. In 2010, Anna survived stage 1 breast cancer, a moment Romano later described as terrifying and clarifying, forcing him to confront how fragile everything truly was. Today, Ray Romano is 69 years old. After heart surgery in 2023, caused by a 90% arterial blockage, he has slowed his pace, choosing selective acting and producing while prioritizing health and family. His estimated $200 million net worth, built largely from long-running royalties, voice work, and syndication, now symbolizes endurance rather than excess. Patricia Heaton as Deborah Barone. Deborah Barone stood at the emotional center of the series, carrying the frustrations, compromises, and invisible labor of family life. Patricia Heaton was 38 years old in 1996, an age that allowed her to give Deborah authority, credibility, and emotional weight. Her performance balanced the show's humor and often grounded its most chaotic moments. Without Deborah, the family dynamic would not have held. Patricia Helen Heaton was born on March 4, 1958, in Bay Village, Ohio, into a family shaped by sudden loss. When she was 12, her mother died unexpectedly from a brain aneurysm, leaving grief suspended over the household. Her father, a sports journalist, raised 4 children alone, doing his best to keep order where emotional closure never arrived. Depression quietly followed Heaton into adulthood, shaping how she processed stress and failure. She moved to New York, chasing an acting career that offered little mercy. Money was scarce, auditions failed repeatedly, and early television projects collapsed before finding footing. Her first marriage ended in divorce in 1987, deepening emotional instability during an already fragile period. Stability finally arrived with Everybody Loves Raymond, earning her 2 Emmy Awards and redefining her as one of television's most emotionally grounded comedic actresses. She later extended that legacy with The Middle. Behind the success, personal battles continued. Heaton later admitted she struggled with alcohol during the height of her career, eventually choosing sobriety after recognizing the toll it was taking. Her second marriage to actor-producer David Hunt, whom she married in 1990, became her anchor as they raised 4 sons together. Motherhood brought emotional fulfillment but also physical strain, leading to multiple surgeries she later discussed openly and without shame. Now, Patricia Heaton is 68 years old. She remains active as an actress, producer, author, and television host, choosing projects with greater care and balance. Her estimated $40 million net worth, built through long-running sitcom success, syndication, and production work, reflects longevity rather than spectacle. Brad Garrett as Robert Barone. Robert Barone was the shadow that never left the room, the taller, louder presence forever standing just behind his younger brother. Brad Garrett was 36 years old in 1996, an age that allowed him to give Robert a mix of bitterness, loyalty, and quiet despair that shaped the show's emotional tension. His performance turned sibling jealousy into one of the series' most enduring themes. Brad H. Gerstenfeld was born on April 14, 1960 in Woodland Hills, California, and his childhood was marked by difference long before fame arrived. Towering over classmates at more than 6.5 feet tall, he was bullied relentlessly, growing up self-conscious and isolated. His parents' divorce forced frequent school changes, reinforcing a sense of instability and emotional dislocation. Humor became both shield and survival instinct. He left UCLA after less than 2 months to pursue stand-up comedy, a gamble that initially paid off when he won Star Search in 1984. Yet early success did not mean security. Garrett struggled financially, bouncing between gigs while building a reputation on the comedy circuit. Television roles followed slowly until Everybody Loves Raymond gave him a platform where his physical presence and emotional restraint finally found purpose. The role earned him 3 Primetime Emmy Awards and critical respect. Fame intensified personal struggles. Garrett later admitted he was a high-functioning alcoholic early in his career, using work to mask addiction. His first marriage to Jill Diven, whom he married in 1999, ended in a painful divorce in 2007 after years of strain, leaving 2 children caught in the aftermath. Sobriety and distance from the spotlight gradually brought clarity. Today, Brad Garrett is 66 years old. He remains active as a stand-up comedian, actor, and voice performer, while also running Brad Garrett's Comedy Club in Las Vegas. With an estimated $50 million net worth built from television, voice work, and business ventures, his legacy is less about size and more about survival. Doris Roberts as Marie Barone. Marie Barone was the force no one could escape. The voice in the kitchen, the judgment at the table, the love disguised as control. Doris Roberts was 71 years old in 1996, bringing decades of experience that turned Marie into the show's most unforgettable presence. Her performance redefined what a sitcom mother could be: intrusive, exhausting, and deeply human. Audiences laughed, then recognized someone they knew. Doris Mae Green was born on November 4, 1925, in St. Louis, Missouri, into a childhood shaped by abandonment and poverty. Her father left when she was young, leaving her mother to raise her alone in New York under constant financial strain. The absence carved emotional scars that followed her into adulthood, sharpening her instincts and resilience. Her career stretched across more than 6 decades, moving steadily through theater, film, and television long before mainstream recognition arrived. Roles in Remington Steele and films like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation built credibility, but Everybody Loves Raymond transformed her into a cultural figure. The role of Marie Barone earned her 4 Emmy Awards between 2001 and 2005, late in life, when many actresses had already been pushed aside. She proved longevity itself could be a form of defiance. Roberts's personal life carried quiet sorrow. Her first marriage ended in divorce, and her second marriage to writer William Goyen lasted until his death from leukemia in 1983. As she aged, health issues mounted, including pulmonary hypertension, yet she continued working with discipline and humor. Off-screen, she became a vocal advocate against age discrimination in Hollywood and supported numerous animal rights causes. Sadly, Doris Roberts died peacefully in her sleep on April 17, 2016, in Los Angeles, at the age of 90, following complications from a stroke and long-standing health conditions. She was laid to rest at Pierce Brothers Westwood Village Memorial Park. At the time of her death, her estimated $14 million net worth reflected decades of work and late career success. More than money, her legacy lives in a character audiences loved even while fearing her knock at the door. Peter Boyle as Frank Barone. Frank Barone was not just the father of the family. He was the storm inside it, blunt, loud, and impossible to ignore. Peter Boyle was 61 years old in 1996, an age that allowed him to turn Frank into a fully formed patriarch rather than a sitcom caricature. His presence anchored the show's generational conflict, giving weight to every argument and silence. Without Frank, the Barone household would have lost its gravity. Peter Richard Boyle was born on October 18, 1935, in Norristown, Pennsylvania, and raised in a strict Catholic environment shaped by discipline and emotional restraint. As a young man, he even entered a religious order, believing faith might offer clarity, but eventually left when the calling collapsed under inner conflict. That early struggle planted a lifelong tension between obedience and rebellion. It was a tension he would later channel into his most powerful roles. His career unfolded slowly and unevenly. Boyle first gained notoriety playing volatile, unsettling figures in films like Joe and Taxi Driver, roles that disturbed audiences as much as they impressed critics. He later revealed discomfort with glorifying violence, stepping away from certain opportunities despite rising fame. Reinvention came through comedy, most memorably in Young Frankenstein, where menace softened into absurd humanity. By the time Everybody Loves Raymond arrived, Boyle had mastered restraint, turning Frank Barone into a study of aging masculinity rather than simple cruelty. Behind the camera, his body paid a price. In 1990, Boyle suffered a devastating stroke that left him unable to speak or move for months, a trauma he fought his way back from. In 1999, during the height of Everybody Loves Raymond, he survived a heart attack on set and returned to work soon after. His marriage to journalist Lorraine Alterman, whom he married in 1977, remained a stabilizing force, and together they raised 2 daughters. Faith, once abandoned, quietly returned during his later years. Sadly, Peter Boyle died on December 12, 2006, in New York City at the age of 71, from complications related to multiple myeloma and heart disease. He was laid to rest at Green River Cemetery in Springs, New York. At the time of his death, his estimated $8 million net worth reflected a career built on integrity rather than excess. Long after his passing, Frank Barone remains one of television's most honest portraits of a difficult man aging in plain sight. Madylin Sweeten as Allie Barone. Allie Barone grew up in front of millions, her childhood unfolding between punchlines and studio lights. She was the quiet observer of adult chaos, often reacting more than speaking. Madylin Sweeten was only 5 years old in 1996, a reality that made her presence on the show both natural and fragile. The audience watched her grow without ever seeing the weight she carried. Madylin Ann Michelle Sweeten was born on June 27, 1991, in Brownwood, Texas, the eldest of 4 children. Before she could form memories, her family relocated to California so she and her siblings could work in television. The move brought opportunity, but it also introduced pressure at an age when childhood should have been protected. Work schedules replaced normal routines, and growing up became a performance. Everybody Loves. Raymond defined her early life, giving her stability on screen while blurring boundaries off it. After the series ended, Sweeten stepped back, choosing smaller roles such as American Splendor rather than chasing constant visibility. She later shifted toward producing, searching for control over her own narrative. Fame had arrived before identity, and distance became a form of healing. Tragedy struck in 2015 when her twin brother Sawyer Sweeten died by suicide at the age of 19. The loss shattered the family and forced Madylin to confront grief under public scrutiny. She has since spoken about mental health awareness and the unseen costs of child stardom. Marriage to Sean Dury brought stability, and together they welcomed a child, reshaping her priorities away from the industry's demands. Today, Madylin Sweeten is 35 years old. She lives largely outside the spotlight, focusing on family life and behind-the-scenes creative work. Her estimated $5 million net worth, built from childhood earnings and selective projects, represents longevity rather than ambition. For Sweeten, survival meant choosing a quieter ending to a very public beginning. Sawyer Sweeten as Jeffrey Barone. Jeffrey Barone barely spoke, yet he was always there, present in the background of a family sitcom that millions trusted as comfort television. Sawyer Sweeten was just 1 year old in 1996, too young to understand cameras, scripts, or applause. His role existed almost instinctively, part of the show's illusion of normal family life. The audience never questioned it, but his childhood had already begun on a set. Sawyer Storm Sweeten was born on May 12, 1995, in Brownwood, Texas, alongside his identical twin brother, Sullivan. Before memory could form, his family relocated to California so the children could work, replacing stability with schedules and expectations. Growing up meant repeating scenes, hitting marks, and being watched. What looked effortless on screen quietly reshaped his inner world. Unlike many child actors, Sawyer's career never expanded beyond Everybody Loves Raymond and a handful of minor appearances. Fame came early but stayed narrow, offering recognition without direction. As the show ended, so did the structure that had defined his life. Without a clear transition into adulthood, silence replaced routine, and pressure lingered without an outlet. Behind the scenes, Sawyer struggled with depression, a battle invisible to most of the audience that had watched him grow. The sudden loss of purpose after childhood fame intensified that weight. Family bonds remained strong, especially with his twin, but grief is not always softened by closeness. His pain unfolded privately, far from the laughter he once helped create. Sawyer Sweeten died on April 23, 2015 in Austin, Texas, at the age of 19, from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He was remembered by cast members as gentle, bright, and deeply loved. His estimated $1 million net worth stood in stark contrast to the life that ended too early. Jeffrey Barone never aged on screen, but Sawyer did, quietly and alone. Sullivan Sweeten as Michael Barone. Michael Barone was one half of a familiar image, two identical boys who blended into the rhythm of family life. Sullivan Sweeten was also 1 year old in 1996, sharing the role and the moment with his twin brother. Together they represented innocence, symmetry, and continuity on the show. Off-screen, that bond would become both his anchor and his deepest wound. Sullivan Sky Sweeten was born on May 12, 1995, in Brownwood, Texas, into a family where childhood and performance quickly intertwined. Like his siblings, he was raised under the quiet pressure of early fame, learning routines before language. Normal milestones unfolded under studio lights. Identity, for years, was shared rather than singular. After Everybody Loves Raymond ended, Sullivan stepped away from acting almost entirely. Unlike many former child stars, he did not attempt reinvention in Hollywood. The absence of public ambition was deliberate, a choice to protect himself from an industry that had defined his earliest years. His life moved inward, away from cameras and expectations. The death of Sawyer in 2015 changed everything. Losing a twin meant losing a mirror, a constant presence that had existed since birth. Grief reshaped Sullivan's world, forcing him to carry memories alone that were once shared. Silence became a form of survival, not withdrawal, but preservation. Now, Sullivan Sweeten is 31 years old. He lives largely outside the public eye, choosing privacy over recognition. His estimated $2 million net worth, accumulated from childhood earnings, supports a life intentionally removed from fame. Michael Barone remained a child forever on screen, but Sullivan grew up carrying both halves of that story. Monica Horan as Amy McDougal Barone. Amy McDougal brought gentleness into a family that thrived on conflict, a calm counterweight to Robert Barone's insecurity. Monica Horan was 34 years old in 1997, old enough to understand that Amy's quiet strength mattered more than punchlines. Her presence softened the show's sharp edges. Amy didn't dominate scenes, she steadied them. Monica Louise Horan was born on January 29, 1963, in Darby, Pennsylvania, and raised in a traditional Catholic household marked by structure rather than turmoil. Her childhood was relatively stable, giving her emotional grounding uncommon in an industry built on volatility. She trained seriously in theater, earning a degree in performance before stepping into professional acting. Discipline, not spectacle, shaped her early years. Her career unfolded patiently. Before Amy became Robert's wife, Horan worked steadily in television and theater, learning how to disappear into ensemble work rather than chase attention. On Everybody Loves Raymond, Amy evolved slowly, from girlfriend to wife, mirroring real emotional progression rather than sitcom shortcuts. Later appearances on Hot in Cleveland and The Middle reinforced her reputation as a reliable, grounded presence rather than a scene stealer. Off-camera, life carried its own pressures. Horan married Philip Rosenthal in 1990, years before Raymond became a phenomenon, and later found herself balancing acting with being the spouse of the show's creator and producer. That dual role came with scrutiny, restraint, and the unspoken expectation of neutrality. Privacy became a boundary she guarded carefully, especially while raising 2 children. Today, Monica Horan is 63 years old. She continues to work selectively, often appearing in projects connected to her family, including Somebody Feed Phil. Her estimated $20 million net worth, built jointly through acting and long-term television success, reflects stability rather than excess. Like Amy Barone, Horan's legacy is quiet, but essential. Andy Kindler as Andy. Andy was never the loudest voice in the room, but he always sounded like reality. Andy Kindler was 40 years old in 1996, an age that allowed him to play Ray's friend with lived-in cynicism instead of sitcom exaggeration. His character grounded conversations in frustration, sarcasm, and adult disappointment. Andy felt less like a role and more like a confession. Andy David Kindler was born on October 16, 1956, in Queens, New York, into a Jewish family shaped by shifting beliefs and quiet complexity. When he was 15, his mother converted to Quakerism, an emotional pivot that subtly altered the family's rhythm. Kindler grew up thoughtful, inward, and observant, traits that later defined his comedy. Music once tempted him before comedy claimed his voice. Stand-up became both his weapon and shield. Kindler built a career criticizing the comedy industry itself, exposing predictability and ego from the inside. While Everybody Loves Raymond gave him mainstream recognition, his true reputation grew through sharp performances, HBO specials, and his infamous State of the Industry speeches at Just for Laughs. Voice work on Bob's Burgers and other animated series allowed his dry intelligence to thrive without dilution. Personally, Kindler avoided spectacle. He married Susan Maljan in 2002 after a long relationship, choosing consistency over chaos. His life unfolded largely outside tabloid culture, even as his critiques cut deep within comedy circles. Mental sharpness, not visibility, remained his priority. In 2026, Andy Kindler is 70 years old. He continues to perform, podcast, and challenge the industry from within, refusing nostalgia as a substitute for honesty. His estimated $1 million net worth reflects a career driven by principle rather than scale. Andy never chased applause. He questioned it. Jon Manfrellotti as Johnny was never meant to lead the conversation, yet he was always there when Ray needed someone who felt real. Jon Manfrellotti was about 44 years old in 1997, old enough to bring lived-in authenticity to a character who spoke less, but meant more. Gianni didn't push jokes. He absorbed them. His value came from familiarity, not volume. Jon Manfrellotti was born on December 31, 1953, in Little Italy, Manhattan, and raised in the working rhythms of New York City. His childhood was shaped by observation, classrooms, neighborhoods, accents, and timing, where humor became a survival skill rather than an ambition. Comedy grew quietly, refined through listening more than performing. That restraint later defined his screen presence. His career unfolded through persistence rather than breakthrough. Before Gianni became recognizable, Manfrellotti moved through small but steady roles in Seinfeld, Law and Order, NYPD Blue, and Mad Men, learning how to exist truthfully in tight frames. On Everybody Loves Raymond, Gianni appeared across multiple seasons, never demanding focus, yet always grounding scenes in realism. Later work on Men of a Certain Age deepened his reputation as an actor who understood adult disappointment without exaggeration. Away from television, Manfrellotti remained rooted in performance rather than celebrity. He continued stand-up work, frequently touring with Ray Romano, and maintained a parallel life as a musician, inspired early by the Beatles. Fame never overtook craft. Stability mattered more than expansion. Today, Jon Manfrellotti is approximately 74 years old. He remains active in comedy and selective acting, choosing familiarity over reinvention. His estimated $1 million net worth reflects a career built on consistency rather than spectacle. Gianni stayed in the background, but that's often where truth lives longest. Maggie Wheeler as Linda Gruenfelder. Linda Gruenfelder brought a different kind of energy, sharper, louder, and unapologetically social, into Deborah Barone's orbit. Maggie Wheeler was 35 years old in 1996, experienced enough to make Linda feel fully formed rather than incidental. Her character didn't soften the show. She challenged it, briefly and memorably. Margaret Emily Jacobson was born on July 17, 1959, in New York City, and raised in a secular Jewish household surrounded by art, music, and conversation. Her upbringing encouraged expression rather than restraint, and performance came naturally. Voices, sounds, and rhythm fascinated her early on. That curiosity later became her calling card. Wheeler's career was already well established before Linda appeared. She had achieved cultural permanence as Janice on Friends, a role so distinct it followed her everywhere. On Everybody Loves Raymond, she resisted caricature, playing Linda with a grounded tone far removed from Janice's exaggeration. Beyond live action, her voice work flourished in animation, from Silverhawks to Archer, revealing a versatility often overshadowed by fame. Her personal life offered contrast to her screen persona. Wheeler married sculptor Daniel Borden Wheeler in 1990, building a long private family life with 2 daughters. Alongside acting, she turned increasingly toward music and community, co-founding the Golden Bridge Community Choir. Creative fulfillment gradually replaced the chase for visibility. Today, Maggie Wheeler is 65 years old. She continues acting selectively while dedicating much of her time to music, teaching, and community projects. Her estimated $2 million net worth reflects longevity rather than peak earnings. Linda Gruenfelder was only a supporting presence, but Wheeler's voice in every sense has carried far beyond it. The cast felt like a family we visited every week, but time never stands still. The faces you remember from Everybody Loves Raymond have changed in ways few of us expected, shaped by age, loss, success, and quiet resilience. Which transformation surprised you the most? and whose journey stayed with you long after the laughter faded. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below as we revisit the cast of Everybody Loves Raymond, 1996, Then and Now.